Last year, in that horrible morning of June 12th, people around the world witnessed in real time what pure hatred looks like.
Hate is a strong word.
It is imperative that we all do our part to prevent an act of hate like this from happening ever again.
And a year after a man killed dozens of people during Latin night at Pulse Nightclub in Orlando, Florida, we're still hearing the word hate as something to defeat.
We will not let hate win.
But according to the government, the Pulse Nightclub shooting wasn't a hate crime. It was an act of terror.
The hate crime numbers for 2016 haven't been released yet, but it's likely the Pulse nightclub shooting won't have an impact on those numbers. The FBI said there's not a sufficient amount of evidence that the shooter acted out of hate, despite going into a gay club, killing 49 people, and then injuring 53 others. We came to Denver to unpack all of that information with the Matthew Shepard Foundation. As someone who works with numbers in hate crimes, how important are those numbers to show how marginalized communities are impacted by those?
So important, like unbelievably.
Sarah Grossman is the communications manager for the Matthew Shepard Foundation, which works to combat hate with community outreach, because on October 7th, 1998, 21-year-old Matthew Shepard was tied to a fence, brutally attacked, and left to die. His death sparked national debate about hate crimes against the LGBTQ community. And on June 12, 2016, 32-year-old Christopher Andrew Leinanen, whose friends called him Drew, was killed in the Pulse nightclub shooting. That hit home for Grossman.
Drew Leinanen was one of my best friends in college.
Do you see any parallels in Matthew Shepard's and Drew's story?
Absolutely. They were both they were people. They were very friendly, had a ton of friends, always in the center of things, and also very controversial. Drew would pick a fight just to, have an argument with somebody about politics or music or movies.
He stood up for what he believed in.
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe stayed standing.
Yeah, yeah, always.
You work for a foundation based on someone who died of a hate crime. Mm-hmm. Pulse is not technically considered a hate crime. What are your thoughts on that?
It makes me angry every single day. A lot of the work that we're doing here at the Matthew Shepard Foundation is to really get hate crimes reported how they should be, and there are a lot of barriers. A hate crime, when it's reported, has to be reported to the police, who first need to deem it as a hate crime. Then they need to send the report to the FBI to investigate, and oftentimes those reports get lost in the ladder. And when they announced that Pulse wouldn't be counted towards the 2016 hate crime report numbers, I was incredibly disappointed, because what else could it possibly have been?
Do you think a terrorist attack and a hate crime can coexist in the same moment?
Absolutely. I think that a terrorist attack is a hate crime.
Days after the attack, then U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch echoed that notion.
People often act out of more than one motivation. This was clearly an act of terror and an act of hate.
So why won't these numbers reflect what the LGBTQ community endures? This is why. On the night of the attack, the shooter pledged allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State in a 911 call. The shooter was killed in a shootout and did not leave a note. Based on the FBI's review of interviews and a review of the shooter's computer and electronic media, it concluded the shooter had been radicalized, and no evidence pointed to him being gay or that the shooting was motivated by homophobia. This conclusion came despite reports from men who said they communicated with the shooter on gay dating apps, and after a report in which a man claimed to have had a 2-month relationship with the shooter. That same man told the media the shooter may have harbored anger toward Puerto Rican gay men stemming from a sexual incident.
In my opinion, there are two types of crimes. Crimes of opportunity, which, is somebody stealing a car, stealing a wallet.
Gaining something from it.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are hate crimes, which are bias motivated by, sexuality, skin color, nationality, sexuality, gender identity, etc. And
you think
I think
Latin night at a gay club might fall into that category?
It sure might. It's a pretty heavy intersection of groups of people that are attacked in our country.
The LGBTQ community makes up about 2% of the population. According to the FBI, nearly 20% of all hate crimes in 2015 occurred because of sexual orientation or gender identity. That makes the LGBTQ community the hardest hit per capita. Even more alarming are the numbers of hate crimes that go unreported.
somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 hate crimes were reported last year, which that seems like a pretty high number. But when you consider those who don't report, the reports that, you know, get lost in the paper pile, we think that the number is closer to 200,000. And that is a staggering number. A lot of people don't report because they are afraid of being re-victimized. In a lot of cases, this sounds very similar to sexual assault. You know, when your car is stolen, a policeman or woman isn't going to ask you what you were wearing or what you were doing at the time, or how late you were out.
How did you influence your car being stolen?
Exactly. That's not how it works, and we should never be re-victimized or asked why it was our fault for being attacked.
Yale Law School senior research scholar Frederick M. Lawrence wrote about why it's detrimental to not call it a hate crime. He said that it fails to validate the specific and deep harm caused to the target minority community. It renders the harm legally invisible, thus invalidating the pain of the community. It thereby inflicts a fresh wound on the victim community, this time coming from their fellow citizens. Grossman strives to remove the red tape involved with reporting acts of hate, a mission she says isn't easy. But when the world has her down, she looks up to a friend who is still inspiring her to build a better future.
I have, you know, a picture of Drew next to a picture of Matthew at my desk, and it's a constant reminder of the work that needs to be done. But you have to continue to live your life. If you live in fear, what life are you living? And I continually think, you know, would Drew want me to go out? Would Drew keep himself inside if something like this happened to one of his friends? And the answer is no, he wouldn't. He would be enjoying his life. He would be dancing still.